Here with Bill Knowlton. We're going to talk about the great job he's been doing over the years, telling us all about bluegrass and being an announcer and telling us how things work. How are you, Bill?
I'm fine. My name is Bill Knowlton, and I do a radio show in Syracuse, Utica, and Watertown, New York, Central New York. It's called the Bluegrass Ramble, and it's on every Sunday night from 9 p.m. till midnight in Syracuse at 91.3, in Watertown at 90.9, and in Utica 89.5. But for the rest of the world, you can hear it Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern at www.wcny.org. And this past January, I celebrated my 42nd anniversary of doing the show every Sunday night.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, how long have you been on the bluegrass scene?
Well, I'm now 76 years old, and growing up in New York City, about in my mid-teens, I came across country music when it was really country because of WWVA out in Wheeling, West Virginia, and my idol was a disc jockey in Newark, New Jersey named Don Larkin, who had the Hometown Frolic Show. But the first way I got into mainstream country, unbeknownst to me as a typical teenager who listened to American popular music, I had no idea that what I was listening to were covers of country music performances like Jambalaya by Joe Stafford and Hey Good Lookin' by Frankie Lane. I mean, I had no idea these were all country songs. And one day this disc jockey on the pop station in New York said, you know, just for fun, I want to play you what the original Jambalaya sounded like. It was written by a hillbilly singer named Hank Williams, and I'm going to play you the Hank Williams recording. Well, I had never heard anything like that in my life, and I just absolutely lost it. And then I found out that Don Larkin had 3 hours of hillbilly music, as we called it back then, on WAAT in Newark, New Jersey. I was able to write an article on Don Larkin for Bluegrass Unlimited magazine several years ago before Don died. And so I was able to give him the roses and to let him know how much his influence was on country music fans for the first time in the New York City, New Jersey area. And then as country music got less and less country, in my opinion, I found that what was left was bluegrass music, and I've been with that ever since. And I've seen its ups and downs and, predictions of its doom because it's not mainstream, and it's been with us since, I told somebody one time, I said bluegrass music was invented in 1945, and it's been dying ever since.
Yeah, that's
so
funny.
We keep it going, though.
Well, you do a lot of festivals every year that you announce at. How does that come about? They contact you, I assume, and what are your jobs? What is it that you do, and what kind of research do you have to get going on that?
I MC almost a dozen festivals a year, up and down, depends on the year. And when it comes to preparation, of course, I want to know who the bands are that are going to perform, and then I usually go on the internet and look at their website and copy down some notes. Some, of course, I've worked with so many years I don't have to do that, but I just make sure that the audience knows more than just the name of the band. I want them to have a positive attitude before the band ever sets on stage. And I love to kid around with them, especially bands I've known for years. I think that a bluegrass MC, or any MC for that matter, should be sort of like that clown that they have at bullfights. Between the fights, that he's supposed to keep the audience interested and amused as the last band gets off and the next band gets on. And I also make sure that I have a clipboard full of flyers and announcements about future bluegrass events and festivals, and I try to plug quite heavily anything that the sponsors of the festival want me to plug, like where the food area is, and if there's specials on food, and where you can buy CDs from the artists, and all this kind of thing.
Yeah,
I just think it's being an MC is just something that it's sort of chewing gum for the ears, so that the audience has something to kind of, they've been on a huge high on the previous band, and it goes down to zero, and then you want to bring them up again for the next band, and so you just want to keep their enthusiasm level alive, and it's just not, well, thank you very much, Okay, the next band is so and so.
Well, I noticed that you also push the events like the vendors and stuff to
Oh, yeah.
build them up as well, which is
Oh, yeah.
a real fun, exciting thing. So when do you go down to the IBMAs?
I go to IBMA every year, and we're having a wonderful time in Raleigh, North Carolina. They're open arms down there. I mean, Louisville and Nashville kind of took us for granted, but the people of Raleigh get right involved in this. They have a 2-day street fair from one end of the main drag to the other, and the people come out for it, and it's just. And the people who live in Raleigh are so welcoming. If they see you have credentials on, oh, are you enjoying Raleigh? We're so glad to have you. And you just feel like the prodigal son has come home. So, in fact, when we first had just a 3-year commitment to Raleigh, but on the basis of our first year, we've extended it to 5 years. That's how much fun we've had down there.
Wow, that's terrific. So you've seen the bluegrass over the years obviously change. There's a lot more progressiveness, progressive music.
To me, so-called progressiveness and pushing the envelope, it comes and goes. But when it comes to the meat and potatoes bluegrass, and I don't mean everybody should just do Foggy Mountain Breakdown. There's plenty of new songs being written in the traditional style. I'm amazed at how many new songs I get every year that are clever and original, and they're story songs. One thing about bluegrass, it's not just I love you and you don't love me. I mean, they have written songs about AIDS in bluegrass music. They have written songs about Alzheimer's in bluegrass music, and very tastefully done. But the traditional style with new songs and all that, it continues on. While some of the really way out bands, in my opinion, they come and go. You don't see people out in the parking lot. I won't name names, but you don't see people out in the parking lot jamming to those particular people's music. You just don't.
Yeah. Are you spend a lot of time going to the parking lot still these days?
Since I'm not a musician, it's the spell of a jam session doesn't really overwhelm me, because if I was a fiddler or banjo picker or something like that, yeah, I'd be out there. But I wander around and see what's going on, and I think it's a marvelous thing about our music, and in that, unlike other forms of music at a festival or an event, I think about 40 or 50% of us can also pick. So you don't see that at a Dixieland festival or a rock festival, and certainly you don't see jam sessions going on.
Yeah, and you see
of course
the stage of playing in the parking
uniqueness of 5 total strangers getting together in the parking area and forming a band that will last for that evening and then totally disappear again.
That's phenomenal.
It is. We have one festival up in upstate New York where they send out judges all throughout the parking area to name the best parking lot picking band, and then they bring them up on the stage at the end of the festival.
Which one's that?
That's the Lodi Pickin' in the Pasture Festival up in the wine country. I personally, years ago, I used to thumb a guitar, but I feel like I contribute more of the music as a catalyst between the musicians and the audience, and that's the way I like to be. And I write about it. And I'm not belittling myself. In some cases, I know more about the music than the musicians do. But it's kind of nice to be in the middle between the audience and the
your
musicians.
view is different because your view is different because you've seen it from a different angle and you've been around for a long time.
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, a few times I've been asked to judge fiddling contests and stuff like that, and a fiddler will say, "No, you have no business judging a fiddle contest because you're not a fiddler." But I explained to him, I said, every one of the judges except for one should be a fiddler. But and that's not to say that the other one should be the president of the Chamber of Commerce. No, he or she should know something about the music. And it's just you have a different perspective that really should come into the mix of the fiddler. Right. And I remember one time the fiddler begrudgingly afterwards, he happened to see my scorecards, and he says, "Well, I would have voted the same way you did." I said, well, at first I said, "You have no business looking at my scorecards."
That's great. So you have a lot of festivals planned for the summer?
About 9 or 10.
Which ones, so we could look for you?
I'll be at the Gray Fox Bluegrass Festival, and the Thousand Islands Bluegrass Festival, and the Tug Hill Bluegrass Festival up in the North Country, and The furthest I go is to Murfreesboro, Tennessee for Uncle Dave Macon Days. He's my idol. I have spent my whole life studying the life and times of the first superstar of the Grand Ole Opry. And I go down there and I MC the finals in buck dancing and clogging and fiddling and old time and bluegrass. It's a wonderful, wonderful event. It's all strictly competition. We have a Heritage Award winner that does a concert, but the rest of it is all strictly contest and jamming. And Uncle Dave would be very proud of it.
Well, that's great. Well, hey, thanks for speaking with us. You've always been nice. I've run into you numerous times at numerous events, and you've always been very welcoming and a gentleman, and thanks a lot for speaking with us today.
Well, let me just invite you all to come down to the oldest bluegrass event in the Northeast, and it'll be the 43rd annual Bluegrass Ramble Picnic, and it's the first Sunday of August, which I think is August 2nd this year. It's absolutely free. It's just south of Syracuse in a little village called Little York at a park, Dwyer Memorial Park, and we go from 10 o'clock in the morning until 7 at night. We have about 19 bands, and each one every half hour. They all donate their services, and it's just something we kept on going.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you.
All right.